You think early European settlers survived America's wilderness on hardtack and salted pork? Think again. These struggling colonists were literally starving to death until Native American tribes shared some of the most ingenious, life-saving, and surprisingly nutritious survival foods in human history. Without these 25 Native American survival foods, half the settlements from Jamestown to Plymouth would have become graveyards. Let's dig into the indigenous knowledge that literally kept European colonization alive. Pemmican, the ultimate survival superfood. Number 1 has to be Pemmican, the original energy bar that could literally mean the difference between life and death on the frontier. Plains tribes like the Lakota and Cree created this survival insurance from dried American bison meat, rendered fat, and wild berries. Women sliced meat paper thin, smoked it over low fires until jerky hard, then pounded it into powder. Meanwhile, bones were cracked to extract nutrient-rich marrow fat. The meat powder was mixed with hot fat and crushed Saskatoon berries, then pressed into dense, chocolatey-tasting cakes that packed more calories per ounce than any modern energy bar. For native families, pemmican meant survival through brutal winters when hunting became impossible. 1 pound could sustain an adult for an entire day of hard travel, providing complete nutrition with protein, healthy fats, and vitamin C. Early trappers called it the bread of the wilderness. Without pemmican, westward expansion would have been impossible. But before we move next, if you love nostalgia and classic comfort foods from the past, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon because I share timeless food memories that you won't want to miss. All right, let's get started. Three Sisters Stew, the nutritional trinity. Number 2 is Three Sisters Stew, the ingenious crop combination that prevented countless cases of malnutrition among struggling settlers. The Haudenosaunee Iroquois had solved the protein problem that plagued Old World agriculture for centuries. They grew corn, beans, and squash together, discovering these 3 plants created nutritional magic when combined in one pot. Fresh corn kernels were scraped from cobs and simmered with chunks of winter squash until tender. Dried beans joined the pot along with wild onions and available meat, creating a thick, hearty stew with a slightly sweet, earthy flavor. This wasn't just convenient, it was biochemical brilliance. Corn and beans together formed complete proteins with all essential amino acids, while squash provided vitamins and minerals. Native communities understood this combination could sustain entire villages through lean seasons. When colonists learned this technique, malnutrition rates dropped dramatically compared to settlements relying solely on European crops. Acorn flour bread, forest abundance. Number 3 is acorn flour bread, the woodland staple that turned poisonous nuts into life-sustaining sustenance through indigenous processing techniques. California tribes like the Miwok and Pomo saw oak forests as bakeries, where settlers saw worthless trees. They developed sophisticated methods for transforming bitter, tannin-rich acorns into sweet, nutritious flour. Women cracked hundreds of acorns, ground the nut meats using granite mortars, then leached the bitter meal in woven baskets with hot water for days until tannins dissolved away. The resulting flour had a mildly sweet, nutty flavor similar to chestnuts. This flour was formed into flatbreads and baked on hot stones, creating dense, protein-rich loaves with crumbly texture and satisfying, earthy taste that could sustain families for weeks. For California's indigenous peoples, acorn bread represented abundance. A single oak grove could feed a village for months. Spanish missionaries who learned these techniques found they could survive where European grains failed completely. Wild rice porridge, the sacred grain of the North. Number 4 is wild rice porridge, the sacred grain that sustained entire communities through harsh northern winters. In Minnesota and Wisconsin Lake Country, the Ojibwe called wild rice manumin, the good seed the Creator had given them. This wasn't Asian rice, but a different aquatic grass providing incredible nutritional density. Harvesting required skilled teamwork, one person poling through rice beds while another used wooden sticks to knock ripe grains into their canoe. Green rice was parched over fires, creating smoky, nutty aromas. Women danced on the rice in special moccasins to remove hulls, then winnowed it clean. The finished rice cooked slowly with water or broth, creating thick porridge with chewy texture and rich, almost meaty flavor. Wild blueberries, maple syrup, or venison were often added for complete nutrition. Maple sugar cakes, nature's energy boost. Number 5 is maple sugar cakes, the concentrated sweetness that provided crucial calories when survival margins were razor thin. Northeastern tribes like the Abenaki saw early spring as sugar time, when maple trees provided concentrated calories after months of scarce winter rations. Men tapped sugar maples by cutting V-shaped gashes and inserting wooden spiles, allowing clear, sweet sap to drip into birch bark containers. Women tended massive outdoor fires, boiling gallons of sap in clay vessels until it reduced to thick, golden syrup. Further boiling created granulated sugar pressed into small cakes. These sugar cakes had intense, pure sweetness with subtle woody undertones. They dissolved slowly, providing instant energy that could revive exhausted hunters or fuel long-distance travel. The texture was firm but crumbly, similar to pressed brown sugar. For native communities, maple sugar represented survival insurance, portable energy that stored for months during spring famine periods. Dried salmon jerky, Pacific Coast protein. Number 6 is dried salmon jerky, the Pacific Northwest protein source that could sustain entire villages through winter months when fishing became impossible. Columbia River tribes like the Chinook and Nisqually built their seasonal cycle around salmon runs, but the window for catching these protein-rich fish was narrow. Women cleaned fresh-caught salmon, filleting them into long strips for maximum surface area exposure. Strips were arranged on wooden racks over slow-burning cedar and alder fires, creating aromatic smoke that flavored while removing moisture. The process required constant attention for days. The finished jerky had deep smoky flavor with concentrated fish taste and tough, chewy texture. Unlike European salted fish, this jerky retained original salmon flavor while becoming lightweight and shelf-stable. For coastal peoples, salmon jerky was the foundation of winter survival. A successful season could sustain extended families until spring. Russian and American traders found it superior to salt pork for long-distance travel. Cattail root flour, the swamp potato. Number 7 is cattail root flour, the marsh staple that turned wetlands into reliable food sources when other options failed. Native peoples from Cherokee to Ojibwe saw cattail marshes as reliable carbohydrate sources, providing more starch per acre than most cultivated crops. Harvesting required wading into muddy marshes, digging up thick, white underwater roots. These were cleaned, dried, and pounded into flour using mortars and pestles. The resulting flour had slightly sweet, starchy taste, similar to potato flour with fine, powdery texture. This flour was mixed with water and formed into flatbreads baked on hot stones or boiled into thick porridge. The finished product had mild, pleasant flavor that accepted seasonings well. Spring brought young cattail shoots eaten fresh like asparagus, while pollen was collected for extra nutrition. Pinole, the long-distance runner's fuel. Number 8 is Pinole, the ground corn energy drink that could fuel Apache warriors on 100-mile raids across desert terrain. Southwestern tribes perfected this portable nutrition by parching corn kernels until they turned golden and nutty, then grinding them into fine meal. The process required precise heat control. Too little, and the corn remained hard to digest. Too much, and it burned bitter. The finished pinole had a toasted, slightly sweet flavor that mixed instantly with water to create a nutritious drink, providing sustained energy for hours. A small pouch of pinole could sustain a warrior for days of hard travel. Mixed with water, it created a filling beverage with creamy texture and nutty taste that provided complex carbohydrates and protein. Some tribes added ground mesquite pods or chia seeds for extra nutrition and flavor variety. Apache raiders could travel incredible distances on nothing but pinole and water, making lightning-fast strikes impossible for heavier provisioned enemies to match. Spanish soldiers quickly adopted pinole for desert campaigns, finding it far superior to their traditional rations. Wojapi, the sacred berry sauce. Number 9 is Wojapi, the concentrated berry sauce that provided essential vitamins and turned bland survival foods into flavorful meals. Plains tribes gathered wild berries, chokecherries, juneberries, wild plums during short summer seasons, then concentrated them into thick, jammy sauces that preserved the harvest. Women crushed berries, seeds, and all, then slowly cooked them over low fires until most water evaporated, leaving intensely flavored, vitamin-rich sauce with texture like thick jam. This purple-black sauce had tart, complex flavor, balancing sweet and sour notes with astringent undertones from the skins and seeds. It was eaten fresh or dried into leather-like sheets for winter storage. Mixed with pemmican or plain corn cakes, Wojapi transformed survival rations into satisfying meals. For native communities, Wojapi meant the difference between surviving winter and thriving through it. The concentrated vitamins prevented scurvy and other nutritional deficiencies during months without fresh foods. Frybread, the adaptation survival story. Number 10 is Frybread, the controversial survival food that represents both resilience and historical trauma in Native American history. When government commodity programs forced tribes onto reservations with limited traditional foods, Native women created frybread from white flour, lard, salt, and baking powder, the only ingredients available. Mixed into simple dough, pieces were flattened and dropped into hot oil, creating puffy golden rounds with crispy exteriors and tender centers. The taste was rich and satisfying, similar to funnel cake, but denser. While not traditional, frybread became a symbol of survival and adaptation. It could be eaten plain, stuffed with meat and beans for Indian tacos, or drizzled with honey for dessert. The simple ingredients were shelf-stable, and the cooking method required minimal equipment. Frybread represents complex history, both the trauma of forced assimilation and the incredible adaptability of native peoples who created comfort and community from imposed limitations. Today, frybread remains popular at powwows and family gatherings, connecting modern native people to their ancestors' resilience. Pine needle tea, the scurvy fighter. Number 11 is pine needle tea, the vitamin C powerhouse that could cure scurvy when citrus fruits were thousands of miles away. Northern tribes knew that certain pine needles contained concentrated vitamin C that prevented the bleeding gums, loose teeth, and weakness that killed so many explorers. Young needles from white pine, eastern hemlock, or Douglas fir were gathered year-round, providing fresh nutrition even in deep winter. The needles were steeped in hot water, creating pale green tea with crisp, resinous flavor and slight citrus undertones. This tea had refreshing, pine-scented taste that varied by species and season. Fresh spring needles provided the highest vitamin C content with milder flavor, while winter needles had stronger resin taste but still contained essential nutrients. Some tribes added maple syrup or wild berries to sweeten the naturally tart brew. Chia seed pudding, the desert superfood. Number 12 is chia seed pudding, the southwestern superfood that could sustain warriors crossing vast deserts with just a handful of tiny seeds. Desert tribes like the Tohono O'odham gathered chia seeds from wild salvia plants, creating one of nature's most nutritionally dense foods. These tiny gray seeds were mixed with water and left to sit until they absorbed liquid and swelled into gel-like consistency. The result was pudding-like dish with mild, nutty flavor and unique texture that was simultaneously smooth and crunchy. The transformation was remarkable. Dry seeds became filling, nutritious pudding providing protein, omega-3 fatty acids, fiber, and sustained energy. Some tribes added ground cornmeal or honey for flavor variation. The seeds could also be eaten dry as trail food. For desert peoples, chia represented concentrated nutrition that could be gathered quickly and stored indefinitely. A small pouch provided complete nutrition for long desert journeys when water was scarce. Spanish conquistadors marveled at native messengers who could run for days on nothing but chia seeds and water. Succotash, the harvest celebration. Number 13 is Succotash, the lima bean and corn combination that celebrated harvest abundance while providing complete nutrition. Eastern woodland tribes created this dish during late summer when both corn and beans reached peak ripeness. Fresh lima beans were shelled and combined with sweet corn kernels, then simmered with whatever vegetables were available: squash, wild onions, or greens. The result was colorful, chunky stew with sweet, satisfying flavor that showcased the garden's bounty. The texture combined creamy beans with crisp corn, creating satisfying contrast that made simple ingredients feel like a feast. Some versions included bear fat or venison for extra richness. The natural sweetness of fresh corn balanced the earthy, starchy flavor of lima beans. For native communities, Succotash represented harvest celebration and winter preparation. This combination could be dried and stored, providing complete proteins through lean months. Pilgrims learned Succotash from the Wampanoag, making it a staple that helped early colonists survive their first harsh winters. Hominy, the alkali miracle. Number 14 is hominy, the alkali-treated corn that unlocked nutrients unavailable in regular corn and prevented deadly pellagra. Southeastern tribes discovered that soaking corn in wood ash lye or limestone water transformed simple kernels into nutritional powerhouses. The alkali treatment removed tough hulls while making niacin, vitamin B3, bioavailable, preventing pellagra, the wasting disease that killed thousands who relied on untreated corn. The process created plump, white kernels with tender texture and mild, slightly sweet flavor. This treated corn was ground into grits, boiled into porridge, or added to stews. The texture was chewy and satisfying, while the taste was cleaner and less starchy than regular corn. The alkali treatment also improved protein quality and made the corn easier to digest. For corn-dependent cultures, hominy was the difference between survival and malnutrition. This simple chemical process unlocked nutrition that kept entire civilizations healthy. Jerky, the original preserved meat. Number 15 is jerky, the dried meat preservation technique that allowed protein to last months without refrigeration. Plains and southwestern tribes perfected meat drying by cutting buffalo, deer, or elk into thin strips and hanging them on wooden racks in the sun and wind. The process removed moisture while concentrating flavor, creating tough, chewy strips with intense, salty sweet taste. Properly made jerky could last for months without spoiling, providing essential protein during travel or lean seasons. The drying process required precise conditions. Too humid and meat spoiled, too dry, and it became inedible. Some tribes added ground chile or wild herbs for flavor and preservation. The finished jerky had concentrated, almost smoky flavor that intensified with chewing. For nomadic peoples, jerky represented portable protein that could sustain hunters and warriors far from base camps. Combined with other preserved foods, it provided complete nutrition for extended expeditions. Modern jerky owes everything to these ancient Native American preservation techniques that conquered the problem of protein storage. Tiswin, the corn beer. Number 16 is Tiswin, the fermented corn beer that provided safe drinking water and essential B vitamins in areas where water quality was questionable. Apache and other southwestern tribes created this mildly alcoholic beverage by fermenting ground corn with wild yeast. Corn was cooked into mush, allowed to cool, then left in pottery vessels where natural yeasts began fermentation. The process took several days, creating fizzy, slightly sour drink with low alcohol content and cloudy golden appearance. Tiswin had tangy, yeasty flavor similar to sourdough starter with mild alcoholic warmth. The fermentation process created B vitamins, while the alcohol content made the drink safer than untreated water. It was consumed fresh, as storage caused stronger fermentation and higher alcohol levels. For desert peoples, Tiswin provided safe hydration and essential nutrients. The brewing process was social activity that brought communities together during harvest celebrations. Spanish colonists initially banned Tiswin, but later recognized its importance for native health and survival in harsh desert environments. Acorn mush, the daily staple. Number 17 is acorn mush, the porridge-like staple that provided daily calories for countless Native American families. California tribes prepared this dish by taking processed acorn flour and cooking it slowly with water, stirring constantly to prevent lumps. The result was smooth, thick porridge with mild, nutty flavor and creamy consistency similar to cream of wheat. Fresh acorn mush had subtle sweetness with earthy undertones that made it satisfying without being overpowering. This mush was eaten plain, sweetened with berries or honey, or used as base for other ingredients. It could be formed into cakes and grilled, creating firmer texture with slightly crispy exterior. The neutral flavor made it versatile foundation for both sweet and savory preparations. For many California peoples, acorn mush was their daily bread, the reliable carbohydrate that filled bellies and provided energy for daily activities. A bowl of mush could sustain someone through hours of hard work. Piki bread, the paper-thin art. Number 18 is Piki bread, the incredibly thin ceremonial bread that required generations of skill to master and represented the highest culinary art. Hopi women spent years learning to make this tissue-thin bread from blue corn batter. The corn was ground to finest powder, mixed with water and juniper ash, then spread paper-thin on special smooth stones heated over fires. The batter cooked instantly, creating bread so thin it was translucent. Properly made, Piki was delicate as tissue paper with subtle corn flavor and crispy texture. The preparation was almost meditative. Each sheet required perfect timing and technique passed down through generations. The finished bread was rolled into tubes and stored for ceremonies. The taste was pure corn essence with slight mineral notes from the ash. For the Hopi, Piki bread represented more than food. It was cultural art form that connected families across generations. Making Piki was sacred activity reserved for special occasions and spiritual ceremonies. Early anthropologists called Piki bread one of the most technically difficult foods in North America, requiring skill that took decades to perfect. Indian ice cream, the mountain treat. Number 19 is Indian ice cream, the whipped berry and fat dessert that created creamy indulgence from mountain ingredients. Pacific Northwest tribes created this treat by whipping soap berries or salmon berries with rendered fat, until the mixture became light and fluffy like mousse. The process required vigorous whipping that incorporated air, creating foam-like texture with pale pink color. The taste was tart-sweet with unique, slightly bitter undertone from the soap berries. This ice cream had creamy, airy consistency that dissolved on the tongue while providing concentrated calories from the fat. Some versions included other berries or sweeteners like camas root. The preparation was social activity where families gathered to whip the mixture and share stories. For mountain peoples, Indian ice cream represented rare luxury, a special treat that transformed simple ingredients into something magical. Wojapi leather, the fruit roll-up. Number 20 is Wojapi leather, the concentrated berry sheets that preserved summer's harvest in portable, candy-like form. Plains tribes took fresh Wojapi sauce and spread it thin on bark or hide sheets, then dried it in sun and wind until it formed leather-like sheets. The process removed water while concentrating sugars, creating flexible, chewy sheets with intense berry flavor. Properly made Wojapi leather could be stored for years without spoiling. These fruit sheets had textures similar to modern fruit roll-ups, but with more complex tart flavor from wild berries including seeds and skins. They could be eaten as candy, reconstituted with water for sauce, or added to stews for flavor and nutrition. For nomadic peoples, Wojapi leather represented portable vitamins that could prevent scurvy during long journeys. A small bundle provided concentrated nutrition that weighed almost nothing. This ancient preservation method is the direct ancestor of modern fruit leathers and energy bars that hikers depend on today. Rose hip jam, the vitamin C treasure. Number 25 is rose hip jam, the concentrated vitamin source that could prevent scurvy better than any citrus fruit. Native peoples across North America gathered rose hips after first frost made them sweet and soft. These bright red fruits were cleaned, cooked slowly until tender, then mashed and strained to remove seeds. The resulting jam had intense, tart-sweet flavor with floral undertones and bright red color that preserved beautifully. Rose hip jam contained more vitamin C than oranges, making it crucial winter medicine that prevented scurvy and other nutritional deficiencies. The natural pectin created thick consistency, perfect for spreading or eating by spoonful. Some tribes dried the jam into leather for longer storage. For northern peoples, rose hip jam meant the difference between healthy winters and seasonal sickness. Tanka bars. Tanka bars represent the modern evolution of pemmican, created by Native American entrepreneur Mark Tilson. These bars combine traditional buffalo meat with cranberries and natural seasonings, bringing ancient nutrition into the modern world. The name Tanka means great or large in Lakota, reflecting the big impact these small bars have on both nutrition and Native American economic development. Unlike mass-produced energy bars filled with artificial ingredients, Tanka bars stick to the original pemmican recipe principles. Buffalo meat provides the protein base, while cranberries add natural sweetness and antioxidants. The bars contain no preservatives, yet they stay fresh for months because the traditional drying and fat rendering process naturally prevents spoilage. What makes Tanka bars special goes beyond nutrition. They represent economic sovereignty for Native American communities. The buffalo meat comes from Native-owned ranches, and the profits support tribal economic development. When you eat a Tanka bar, you're not just getting healthy food, you're supporting Native American communities working to rebuild their traditional food systems while creating modern businesses. Acorn bread. Acorns covered the ground every fall like nature's own grocery store, and Native American tribes across North America knew how to turn these bitter nuts into sweet, nutritious bread. The process requires patience and knowledge passed down through generations because raw acorns contain tannins that make them inedible without proper preparation. The first step involves cracking open the acorns and grinding them into meal using stones. This acorn meal tastes incredibly bitter due to the tannins, so it needs to be leached with water. Traditional methods involved placing the meal in baskets and pouring water through it repeatedly until the bitter taste disappeared. Some tribes buried the meal in stream beds, letting running water do the work over several days. Once the tannins are removed, the acorn meal becomes sweet and nutty. It gets mixed with water to form dough, then shaped into flat cakes and cooked on hot stones or in earth ovens. The finished bread has a dense texture and rich flavor that's completely different from wheat bread. Acorn bread provided essential calories and nutrients during winter months when other food sources became scarce. Wild rice and cranberry pilaf. Wild rice isn't actually rice. It's a grass seed that grows in the shallow lakes of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and southern Canada. The Ojibwe people call it manuman, which means good berry, and they've harvested it using traditional canoes and wooden poles for over 1,000 years. This sacred food holds such importance that the Ojibwe have prophecies about following the food that grows on water to their promised land. Harvesting wild rice requires skill and respect for the plant. Families paddle wooden canoes into rice beds during the late summer, using carved poles to bend the rice stalks over the canoe while knocking the ripe seeds into the boat with wooden paddles. The seeds get parched over fires, then winnowed to remove the hulls, creating the dark, nutty grains we know as wild rice. Cooking wild rice and cranberry pilaf combines the earthy flavor of manuman with the tartness of cranberries, another traditional food source. The rice gets simmered slowly until the grains split open and become tender, then mixed with dried cranberries, wild onions, and sometimes nuts like hazelnuts or walnuts. This dish provides complete nutrition with protein, complex carbohydrates, antioxidants, and healthy fats all in one bowl. Bear fat fry bread. Fry bread carries complicated emotions in Native American communities. While it represents survival and adaptability, it also reminds people of government commodities and forced changes to traditional diets. Bear fat fry bread connects to older traditions when native hunters rendered fat from bears, elk, and buffalo to create cooking oil that could last for months without refrigeration. Bear fat has unique properties that make it perfect for frying. It has a high smoke point, so it doesn't burn easily, and it adds a rich, nutty flavor to whatever gets cooked in it. Rendering bear fat requires cutting the fat into small pieces and slowly heating it until the pure oil separates from the solid pieces. The rendered fat gets stored in hide containers or modern jars, staying fresh for months. The fry bread dough itself is simple, just flour, salt, baking powder, and water mixed into a soft dough. Small pieces get stretched thin and dropped into hot bear fat, where they puff up into golden circles with crispy edges and soft centers. Traditional fry bread was smaller and denser than modern versions, designed to provide maximum calories with minimal ingredients. Eaten with wojapi, honey, or meat, bear fat fry bread provided essential calories during long hunts or harsh weather. Hominy stew. Hominy represents one of humanity's greatest food innovations, though most people don't realize its importance. The process of treating corn with alkali solutions to create hominy makes the grain more nutritious and easier to digest, preventing diseases like pellagra that plagued populations who ate untreated corn. Native American tribes developed this technique independently, calling the processed corn by various names, including nixtamal and hominy. Creating hominy starts with dried field corn kernels and wood ash from specific trees like hickory or oak. The ash gets mixed with water to create lye, which is then heated with the corn kernels until the tough outer hulls loosen and can be rubbed off. What remains are plump white kernels with a distinctive chewy texture and nutty flavor that's completely different from regular corn. Hominy stew combines these processed corn kernels with meat, usually venison or rabbit, and whatever vegetables are in season. Wild onions, sunflower seeds, and berries often find their way into the pot, creating a hearty one-dish meal that could feed large groups. The stew gets cooked slowly over low fires, allowing the flavors to develop and the hominy to become tender. This wasn't just sustenance, it was complete nutrition that could sustain people through the hardest times. Cedar tea. Cedar tea doesn't actually come from cedar trees. It's made from various evergreen trees, including white pine, hemlock, and juniper, that Native Americans called cedar because of their similar properties. This aromatic tea provided essential vitamin C during winter months when fresh fruits and vegetables weren't available, preventing scurvy and other nutritional diseases that affected many early European explorers. Different tribes used different trees for their cedar tea, but the preparation method remained similar across cultures. Fresh or dried needles get steeped in hot water for several minutes, creating a tea with a piney, slightly bitter flavor. The tea contains not only vitamin C, but also antimicrobial compounds that help fight infections and respiratory problems common during cold weather. Drinking cedar tea connects people to the forest in a direct, intimate way. Each sip carries the essence of ancient trees that have weathered countless seasons. Many Native Americans consider cedar tea sacred, using it in ceremonies and healing rituals as well as daily nutrition. The tea varies in strength and flavor depending on which tree species is used and what time of year the needles are harvested, with spring growth offering the mildest flavor. Cholla buds with agave syrup. The Sonoran Desert might look barren to outsiders, but desert tribes like the Tohono O'odham knew it as a vast grocery store filled with nutritious foods. Cholla buds, the flower buds of prickly pear cactus, provided important nutrition during late spring when other food sources ran low. These spiny buds required careful harvesting and preparation, but they offered protein, calcium, and complex carbohydrates that sustained desert communities. Harvesting cholla buds takes skill and the right tools. Using long wooden tongs, collectors knock the buds from tall cactus plants before the flowers open. The buds are covered in sharp spines that must be removed by rolling them in sand or burning them off over fires. Once cleaned, the buds get roasted in earth ovens, lined with hot stones, cooking for hours until they become tender and sweet. Agave syrup, made from the hearts of century plants, provides the perfect complement to roasted cholla buds. The agave hearts get roasted for days in underground ovens, breaking down complex carbohydrates into simple sugars that taste like dark honey. When cholla buds are served with agave syrup, the combination creates a dessert that's completely natural yet satisfying enough to end any meal. This pairing shows how desert peoples found sweetness and sustenance in one of North America's harshest environments.